Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Robocop 3, brought to us by Ocean and Probe Entertainment. Robocop 3, of course, based on the third Robocop film. While my least favorite film, it also happens to be, well, my least favorite of the three NES Robocop games. It's also interesting to note that Robocop 3 is once again developed by a different team than Robocop 1 or 2 for the NES. And it really does show that they changed up the graphical style once again from the second game, as well as the gameplay is a little bit different. Here we go with Robocop 3 for the NES. The game is very arcade style, once again being more reliant on if you can get a high score or not. Once you start up the game, you get a little bit of story before the first level starts up. Now, you have two forms of attack in the game. You have a gun, and you have missiles. You can upgrade these by picking up W's on the ground, and they alternate which one they end up upgrading. So if you pick up the first one, it'll upgrade the gun, then the next one will upgrade missiles, and then so on and so forth. Unfortunately, though, because the levels end up being really short, I don't usually end up picking up all three upgrades for either the gun or the missiles. So I do apologize for that. You can fire in all different directions, basically, with Robocop, and that makes it easy to attack enemies, especially above you. The enemies, though, for the most part, are pretty easy to tangle with in the first level. They will give you a second or two before they end up firing, with the exception being the guys in the trash cans. As soon as they pop out, they immediately start firing their machine gun-like fire, but thankfully you can easily duck underneath of it. You can see your health in the upper left corner as the efficiency percentage, which you can upgrade by picking up the different P things along the way that you'll see it'll go up by different percentages, and every time you get hit, you'll lose a little bit. Your health is also based on what area you end up getting hit in, and you'll see after you complete a level that you can actually upgrade each of the parts of Robocop to make each part a little bit more efficient if you would like to. The first level ends with just a gauntlet against regular guys and a guy in the window, which is easily able to be taken out. Here you can see at the end of the level where you have the extra Ps that you picked up, you can place them where you would like to. Usually I focus on the main chest armor because that seems to be the most shot area of my character. After completing level 1, we move on to level 2. It's definitely a little bit tougher. The enemies take a few more shots, as well as there is a few more platforming elements to the level, including watching out for jumping into giant pools of acid. Thankfully, after the first stage, I have a good amount of percentage in my efficiency, so it's not too much trouble while trying to make it through here as far as my health is concerned. Try to take out this enemy using the conveyor belt from afar before you attempt to jump to the two platforms. Also be careful when you're jumping to the platforms over acid because some of them will break apart and fall down to the ground. Next up we have the mini-boss for the level, which ends up also being the end boss, so get used to fighting him. These ninjas are a pain in the butt, as they like to jump around the room, and if they get close to you, they will end up slicing you with their sword. You can see, thankfully, they do have a health percentage meter, just like you do, in the upper right corner. You may also wonder why not use the missiles since they are more powerful. However, you end up getting them stopped during most boss fights. They will not fire at all, as the enemies actually prevent you from shooting them. And because of this, this ends up being pretty darn annoying, and I end up just using the main gun for most of the game. I found the best strategy for the ninja itself is if it gets close to you, just jump around a little bit, and you should be able to force him to jump up in the air himself and go to the upper platform, eventually either going to the left or right far sides of the screen and going off screen, and then you can continue firing him once he re-enters the screen. The first fight with him is really easy, the second one a little bit tougher because of the terrain around you, but still not too bad. While here, jump up to the top platform and then make a big jump over to the right is probably one of the toughest jumps to make in the area, so be very careful while doing that one. When up here, aim downwards to take out the guy in the tires, and then take out the next guy just above, and then keep jumping to the small platforms. There is a conveyor belt here, so be very careful when you jump on it, you don't end up getting knocked off the conveyor belt down below. Here we have two guys in the tires as we get closer and closer to the end of the stage. Be sure to fire upwards to take out the two guys up here, and then grab the item here that's flashing, as you'll get another big upgrade from it. Make some big jumps over to the right side, continue firing at the enemies, and then when you make it over to the giant fan, you'll know that you're at the end of the level. Here we have another rematch against the ninja. With the machine gun-like fire that we have for our handgun, it works out a little bit better than just firing the single shots at him, but the same strategy is basically going to apply. When he gets close to you, jump around, forcing him to jump as well, and try to get him to jump up to one of the other platforms. By doing so, he'll end up having to forcefully walk off one of the edges of the platforms, giving you an opportunity to walk away from him and aim up some shots. Once you're able to drain his health though, we completed the level and we move on to level 3. Now level 3 is one of the funnest levels in the game because you actually have a jetpack during it. The jetpack allows you, of course, to easily float up and down between the top and bottom platforms. You can also float in the air to avoid the missiles as they're firing at you, as you have a giant tank you're slowly making your way towards. Now the homing missiles, which I have here, as you can see, work pretty darn well against normal enemies. Unfortunately, like I said, they don't work during the boss fights. Over here to the right, be sure to pick up the maximum fuel, as you'll need fuel in order to actually power up the jetpack. My goal during this level is to just keep alternating between the gun and the missiles, depending upon if enemies are above or on the same level as me. And thankfully, being on the bottom area, for the most part, missiles will keep going overhead, but if you have one that comes directly at you, be sure to float up with the jetpack to get over it. Once you reach the end of the buildings, it's time to actually battle the giant tank itself. I walk all the way over to the right to get underneath the tank itself after first taking out the first two enemies on the top portion of the tank. Then duck down here so the guy in the tank can't hit you while he's throwing his arcing shots, but you can keep firing at any enemy that appears from the left side. Once all the enemies stop coming from the left, take out the last guy inside the tank itself and you complete the level. Now for level number 4, you now move back through the same exact level we just completed, except of course going in the opposite direction, and unfortunately we don't have the jetpack this time around. There's going to be an enemy that spawns right at the very beginning, and it's really annoying because it's kind of hard to actually shoot him, since if an enemy is on you, you won't be able to fire any of the bullets directly at him. Now, moving your way backwards to the level is a little bit tougher, of course, since we don't have the jetpack, but there's no missiles to deal with. However, the game likes to compensate for the fact there's no missiles by adding landmines everywhere throughout the level. You'll see these little yellow mines on the ground, and when you get close to them, they'll explode, sending a shot left and right and one straight up into the air. Unfortunately, sometimes they'll explode when you even get anywhere in the vicinity of them, and then other times you'll have to get right up on them in order to actually activate them. Thankfully, sometimes jumping can negate them actually exploding, as you were able to see with the 3 that were located on that one platform. But if you've been able to handle all the other levels so far, since the enemies aren't any different than they were from the very first level on, even with the added landmines, you're not going to have too much difficulty here. Up here, you'll take out an enemy, and there's 2 landmines at the end, but you're almost near the very end of the stage, as seemingly all the enemies stop appearing, and you can just pretty much walk left to get to the actual end here. However, when you make it to the end, it will be time for a boss fight. Get the boss to appear, then jump onto the top platform. Just keep jumping over and over again, and keep firing the homing missiles until you run out of them. Once you've run out of the homing missiles, drop down to the platform below, and just fire a bunch of the missiles straight at them. Even if you do get hit a few times, you'll easily be able to finish off the giant mech, and move on to the final level. Now, the final level of the game is different than the other ones because your goal here is not to take out enemies. You'll have 2 of the ninja enemies to deal with here. However, you can't take them out when firing at them, so just ignore them and instead work over to the right. You'll see a bunch of panels in the background and a console in the front of them. Hold up on the console in front of them and you'll slowly start to put in the number sequence that you need to into the back panels. What you'll have to do is keep jumping around to get the ninjas to go all around on the different platforms, giving you enough opportunity in order to start putting in the things on the console. You'll notice that you also have a timer in the upper right corner. If that ends up going down before you're able to get all the numbers sequences put in, you will end up dying. Thankfully, it is a decent amount of time to try to get all the ninjas to go around, and once you put the last numbers in, you can sit back and enjoy the ending to Robocop 3. And there is your ending. It's just a single sequence, and then eventually it goes so you can put in your high score name. So as you can see, Robocop 3 is not only a short game, it's not necessarily really a fun game either. While being pretty easy on the overall difficulty scale, I have a hard time recommending it to other people. Either way, guys, that's going to wrap up another edition of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.